When blood betrays, love remains. It was the dead of night, and the rain was pouring down in torrents. The silence in the house was stifling, broken only by the steady drip of water from the leaky kitchen faucet. I was 12, a skinny kid with a mop of dark hair and eyes too serious for his age. My little sister Maya was only 6, her tiny hands clutching the worn teddy bear our mother had bought for her from a yard sale years ago. The house felt empty, hollowed out. Something was wrong. I crept down the hallway, pushing open the door to my parents' bedroom. My heart plummeted. The closet doors hung open, their clothes gone, and a few hangers lay discarded on the floor. The dresser drawers were yanked open, emptied of belongings. It felt like a nightmare, a cruel, unending dream. I glanced at Maya, fast asleep in the bedroom we shared, blissfully unaware. She wouldn't know that, when morning came, her life would never be the same. I spent that night sitting on the edge of her bed, running my fingers through her soft hair as she slept, whispering promises to myself. I told her I would protect her, be there for her. But in my heart, fear and anger were already setting in. I was just a kid. I didn't know how I would do it, but as dawn broke and Maya awoke, her small face turning up to me with trust and innocence, I knew I had no choice. Chapter 2: Learning to Survive. In the days that followed, reality hit me like a sledgehammer. Our parents were gone. No calls, no letters, nothing. Just gone. I tried calling their cell phones, only to hear the harsh finality of a disconnected tone. For days, I sat by the phone, willing it to ring, hoping they would realize the gravity of what they'd done and come back for us. When the money ran out, I realized I had to step up. I learned to cook basic meals with what little we had left in the pantry. Canned beans, pasta, and stale crackers became our daily fare. I even figured out how to stretch $1, shopping carefully at the local grocery store, hoping to get the most for our measly budget. School became secondary to survival. I skipped classes to work odd jobs around town, delivering newspapers at dawn, mowing lawns on weekends, and sometimes even washing dishes at a nearby diner. I couldn't let anyone know that 2 kids were living alone in that little house. I was terrified someone would find out and split us up, send Maya to live with strangers. Our landlord, Mrs. Green, was a blessing. A sharp-eyed widow in her 70s, she saw through my attempts to hide our situation. One evening, she came by to collect the rent, but instead she handed me an envelope with enough cash to cover a few months. "Just tell people I hired you to help with my garden and fix things around the house," she said gruffly, pretending not to notice the tears brimming in my eyes. She'd given us a lifeline, and I clung to it with everything I had. Chapter 3: Becoming Each Other's Family. As the years went by, Maya grew up fast, though I tried to shield her from the harsher realities of our life. Every birthday, every holiday, I found ways to make it special. I'd scrape together every dollar I could spare to buy her a small gift or make her a favorite meal. Those little moments of joy, her bright smile lighting up the room, kept me going. She was my anchor, my reason for everything. Maya, for her part, grew up to be incredibly resilient. By the time she reached high school, she understood what I'd done for her. She would help around the house, never complaining, always smiling despite our struggles. I watched her excel in school, determined to create a better future for herself. I was proud, so proud to see the person she was becoming. I'd given up on my own dreams long ago, but watching Maya, I felt like a part of those dreams lived on in her. She was going to college, no matter the cost. I saved every penny, took on extra shifts, and even deferred rent some months, knowing I'd make it up later. When she received her acceptance letter, we hugged, crying tears of joy and relief. My sacrifice had been worth it. Chapter 4: An Unwanted Contact. One night, as I was finishing up dishes after dinner, Maya approached me, her face unusually pale. She seemed nervous, twisting her hands together, a habit she had when something was weighing on her. They found me," she whispered, not meeting my gaze. It took me a moment to understand. "Who?" I asked, although deep down I already knew the answer. Our parents, she said softly, her voice trembling. They reached out to me on Facebook. They want to meet. She finally looked up, eyes brimming with conflicting emotions. Hope, fear, confusion. They had written her a message, explaining how they had been overwhelmed back then, dealing with problems that had seemed insurmountable. Now, after all these years, they wanted to reconnect and be part of her life. A storm of emotions raged inside me. They had the audacity to come back now, after abandoning us when we needed them most? I struggled to find words, feeling a surge of anger and betrayal that threatened to consume me. But Maya, she was still that little girl, clinging to the idea of a family, wanting to believe that our parents had reasons, even if those reasons weren't good enough for me. "They're still our parents," she said, voice barely above a whisper. Her words felt like a slap in the face. I wanted to scream, to tell her that family isn't defined by blood, but by loyalty and sacrifice. But looking at her, I realized that she needed this. She needed closure, a way to fill the void they'd left in her heart. Reluctantly, I agreed to go with her to meet them. Chapter 5. The Painful Reunion. The day of the reunion felt surreal. We met at a small cafe, and I saw them sitting there, looking older, worn, and remorseful. My father shifted uncomfortably as we approached, his eyes darting between Maya and me. My mother's eyes filled with tears as she whispered apologies, fumbling through explanations that sounded hollow and rehearsed. They said they had been young, struggling with their own demons. They claimed they'd left to find themselves, not realizing the extent of the damage they were causing. Every word they said felt like salt on a wound. I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to shout, to tell them exactly how much their choices had cost us. But Maya, she listened, nodding, her expression softening as she held on to their every word. She seemed willing to forgive them, to give them a chance. The tension in my chest grew unbearable. When we left, I felt like I had lost her all over again, not to strangers, but to the parents who had already abandoned us once. How could she let them back in? Chapter 6. A Rift Between Us. In the weeks that followed, Maya spent more time with our parents, meeting them for coffee, talking to them about her dreams, her life. She started sharing stories with me about their time together, and every time she did, it felt like a knife twisting in my heart. I had spent years scraping and sacrificing to give her a life, only for them to waltz back in and enjoy the person she'd become. One day, Maya told me she was considering moving in with them. They had offered to help with her college expenses, something I had always struggled with. She saw it as a way to lighten my burden, but to me it felt like betrayal. I lashed out, telling her I couldn't believe she was choosing them after everything they had done. She looked hurt, but I was too blinded by my own pain to see it. Our relationship, once unbreakable, was now fraying. We were both hurting, each of us lost in our own perspectives. Chapter 7. Finding Forgiveness. Months passed in strained silence. Then one night, Maya showed up at my door, tears in her eyes. She threw her arms around me, whispering, "I'm sorry, I just needed to understand, but they can never replace you." She told me that while she wanted closure with our parents, they could never undo what they had done. We had our own family, our own bond, and nothing would ever take that away. I hugged her back, feeling the weight lift off my heart. She hadn't abandoned me. She had just been searching for answers. Epilogue. A new chapter. Maya maintained a relationship with our parents, but she stayed close to me, our bond stronger than ever. We both knew that family was more than blood. It was loyalty, sacrifice, and love. And in the end, we had found our way back to each other. De-abandoned in the dead of night by the very people meant to protect them, two siblings are left to navigate a world of hardship and uncertainty. With only each other to rely on, the older brother shoulders the weight of raising his younger sister, sacrificing his own dreams to give her a chance at a better life. Years later, just as they've begun to find their way, the siblings face an unexpected twist. Their estranged parents want to reconnect. Torn between the bonds of blood and the scars of betrayal, they must decide what family truly means and whether some wounds can ever heal.